Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Common Sense Crypto channel. As with you always, this is Rich doing another video today on XRP. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day today, wherever you are in this great world. We're going to talk about XRP. It's going to be kind of like XRP meets the World Economic Forum, because we're going to talk about the World Economic Forum and regulations around crypto as well, and blockchain. So crypto proponent says when XRP pumps, it does it extremely fast. There have been lots of positive predictions for XRP lately. The latest came from a pseudonymous crypto proponent known on Twitter as Crypto Asset Guy. In a recent tweet, he said the digital asset may remain lethargic for a long period of time, but when it starts to rally, it does it extremely fast. Referencing the ongoing lawsuit, Crypto Asset Guy said once the judge finally pronounces her judgment, XRP could easily ascend to a new all-time high. And I've been saying this for quite a while. You have to be holding XRP when this judgment happens. If not, you're going to be paying a much higher price for XRP because it's going to move so quick. And anybody that you know that isn't invested in the crypto or invested into XRP, they need to get in now before it's too late. And I also don't expect some major pullback like they keep talking about on crypto Twitter. It doesn't make sense. They're saying XRP is going to hit $13 and then pull all the way back under $2. Think about it. The case ends. XRP gets regulatory clarity. Banks start utilizing on-demand liquidity within a few days. Plus all the FOMO money pouring into XRP at the same time. I see a pullback, but not that kind of a pullback, not under $2. I'm just not seeing it. Ripple president excited as momentum builds with new milestones in weeks. First, she talks about the acquisition of Mateko. Then she talks about the Hinman documents being made public. Long thinks that the decision on the Hinman emails is a victory for transparency when discussing its significance. The founder of Crypto Law, Johnny Deaton, believes the Ripple president is on the right track when she claims that the disclosure of the Hinman emails is a win for transparency. I think she's absolutely right as well. I still believe, though, that we should have seen these Hinman emails within the first year of this lawsuit, not almost 3 years later. Forbes contributor, right now the XRP army is carrying all of crypto on its back. And he's 100% right. You know, think about it. Even if you don't hold XRP, Ripple is out there fighting for whatever crypto you're holding. Because if Ripple was to lose against the SEC, right away, Gary's going to go out there and continue shaking down all these crypto companies. He's going to be going after every single crypto. But if Ripple wins, it will stop Gary dead in his tracks. That's how big this case actually is. Coinbase accuses the U.S. SEC of deliberately ignoring all requests to establish clear regulations for the cryptocurrency market. The reason Gary doesn't want to come up with regulations or a clear path forward, because that would take all the power away from him. Think about it. You have regulations put in place. Now, all of a sudden, these crypto companies start following those regulations, start following that framework. This way, they don't have problems with the SEC in the future. As long as there's no regulation, Gary can continue shaking down these companies. And now, all of a sudden, Coinbase fights for the welfare of the entire industry. What do you think Ripple's been doing for almost 3 years now? Come on. The World Economic Forum releases a paper on crypto asset regulation, recognizing the urgent need for regulation and cooperation. So the one thing I want to point out here is this. Only the United States was looked at as a home of regulation by enforcement. The authors of the paper wrote, "This approach is not recommended to build out a framework, as regulation by enforcement precludes any meaningful discussion of what should and should not be regulated." So when the World Economic Forum is calling out the fact that the U.S. is going in the wrong direction, and now they're talking about global crypto regulations at the same time, It goes back to what I've been saying for quite a while now. I think the World Economic Forum has clear regulations already written up, and they're going to hand them out to every single country, because I think they need those regulations put in place ahead of a CBDC. It all plays into the Great Reset agenda. That's why I think they're talking about global regulations right now. Now take a listen to what the Atlanta Fed had to say about regulatory clarity. This is big.
Of each to answer the following question. If you were to recommend to policymakers, we have a room full of them today, one action to mitigate the risk to consumer and financial stability emanating from Web3, or one action to maximize its potential benefits, what would that action be? And let me start with Richard, and then Stephen and Hillary, and then I'll move back to Christine.
Thanks, Marina. As part of the report, again, the interviews and surveys with 50 market participants, largest in the world, around the future financial market infrastructure and how public ledger fits into that. We did ask in the survey, what is holding you back from moving forward? Overwhelmingly, the number one response was regulatory clarity. Number two is interoperability and then scalability. But number one, by a good measure, was regulatory clarity. So there are two things that are needed. Regulatory clarity is one, and that requires engagement by folks in this room and outside of this room for public-private partnership with these institutions to help to create the structures, the guardrails, the clarity necessary for innovation to continue. It's happening internationally. It's happening in other jurisdictions. And generally, the largest banks in the U.S. feel that the U.S. is falling behind based on what they're seeing advance in other jurisdictions around the engagement of this ecosystem. So regulatory clarity is one.
Do you see how important regulatory clarity is? Even the big banks are now talking about it. And overwhelmingly, it's the number one response at the same time. That's why it's important that somebody steps in now and stops Gary from what he's doing to the crypto space. We need innovation to push ahead in this country. Other countries are starting to pick up momentum now, and I think people are starting to realize that. How can blockchain tech help the race to net zero? And again, this is why the World Economic Forum is so big on blockchain, because they could use it to tax me and you all along the way in the future. So the number one reason that they're so hell-bent on blockchain is because of carbon tracking and offsetting. Once they could track your carbon, then they could force you to buy offsets around carbon. And that's going to work like a tax in the future. I don't like it at all. I think it's going to be a massive industry, but I absolutely don't think it's a good idea. Trading renewable energy. Now, renewable energy is great, but it's also very expensive. So we'll end up paying more for energy in the future at the same time. Then they talk about supply chain transparency. Remember during COVID when all the boats were sitting out on the ocean and prices of everything was going up because all the products were out there sitting? They're still using that excuse to today. So we have inflation, plus we have the fact that nobody has certain products. It's not every product, it's just certain products. And that's why they're so hell-bent on blockchain in the future, because they could use it to tax me and you. And it's not hard to see that that's what direction we're headed in. World Economic Forum demands regulations to make artificial intelligence inclusive. He goes on to talk about misinformation using AI. But a lot of what most people talk about when they talk about the World Economic Forum is not misinformation. Most people talk exactly what Klaus Schwab is saying. The words are coming directly out of his mouth, and people are pointing out his evil agenda, and he doesn't like it. So they want to take artificial intelligence, and they want to be able to control it in the future. Then there's this fascist is one of the reasons rents are so high. BlackRock will force you to accept the things you find repulsive and unnatural. Did you ever ask yourself, why does the world look backwards right now? Everything you were ever taught to be right is all of a sudden wrong. Well, it's because guys like Larry Fink are controlling the show. BlackRock CEO and World Economic Forum globalist Larry Fink says, quote, corporations must work harder to force people to change behaviors, dated March 25th, 2022. Fink makes Klaus Schwab and George Soros look like babies in diapers when it comes to evil, with over $9 trillion under management in his woke and climate agenda-driven fund. And it's true, he's even causing a ton of division here in the U.S. Look at CNN and Fox News. People cannot get along in this country as long as people like Larry Fink are controlling the show. On top of that, he's also controlling the prices of rent in this country. Whenever you go to buy a house, most likely you're bidding against BlackRock in the end. Elon Musk's Neuralink just got FDA approval to test computer chip implants with human brains. I don't like this at all on any level. I think once you get a chip put in you, they can control all of your actions in the future. Now take a listen again to the Fed talking about Web3 and digital assets.
For banking and financial markets, the disruptive thesis of Web3 disintermediating parties in financial transactions is quickly fading. It's quickly fading as regulated entities engage with Web3 and innovate around new processes, new workflows, and redefine the value they bring to financial intermediation. We're working on a report now about the future financial market infrastructure and have the following findings from interviewing and surveying over 50 market participants, including global banks, broker-dealers, exchanges, asset managers, and Web3 natives. The first point is that the future state infrastructure of financial services, validated by industry executives, will likely be delivered on shared, interoperable blockchain networks used by regulated incumbents. The second finding is that while this feels inevitable to the industry, there's still much to do, as current state functionality, standards, interoperability, and regulatory clarity is not yet there for widespread applicability and use. However, financial services institutions aren't waiting, and distinct blockchain business networks are being delivered today, organized around use cases in jurisdictions with legal and regulatory clarity. Now, the journey to convergence of private and public networks, ledgers, and infrastructure stand to extend the value of those private chain business networks that are being developed today. So what we conclude in the report is that the near-term engagement by financial participants, financial market participants, is not about the right public or private blockchain. It's certainly not about crypto. It's about the right business network ecosystem and use case to gain experience and develop assets that will lead to accelerated adoption as the market matures, and doing so in a regulatory permissible way. Case in point, iPhone 1, not super functional, but you had to buy iPhone 1 and continue on that journey to get to iPhone 14. If you hear that the technology doesn't scale or other issues with the technologies not being very good, that's the way innovation cycles work. And market participants need to engage and use the technology so that it may mature rapidly and achieve its full potential in reshaping financial markets.
I think it was absolutely great the way he talked about Web3. And I like the fact that you can't get to iPhone 14 without getting to iPhone 1 first. You know, and that's R.K. Walker from Bain and Company speaking there. And I like his idea about regulatory clarity at the same time. You know, we can't hold back innovation. You got to let it grow out. You got to let it expand. We can't go into the future if you're going to be held back along the way. And that's why I've been saying, you know, it's not just crypto. It's blockchain. It's Web3 companies. It's gaming. Whatever you talk about, it has to have the ability to grow out. you need to get the regulators out of the way first. Then there's this. So, U.S. Congressman introduces legislation to prevent unelected government officials from issuing a CBDC. Is he talking about the Fed? Because we know the Fed is not an elected government official. And I think that right now what's going on is the Fed is pushing ahead with FedNow because it's just a payment system, kind of like PayPal. That's how they're selling it. But it's going to morph into a CBDC. And somebody needs to stop it before it's too late. Hopefully some of these congressmen realize where FedNow is headed. And I think they do. And I think that's why they're getting the laws put in place ahead of it before it's too late. And then there's also the debt ceiling that's going on right now and the big argument. You know, if you turn on the news, everybody's worried about the debt ceiling. They are going to raise it, most likely at the last minute. That's usually how people feel about it. But what if they didn't raise it? Now, all of a sudden, FedNow is going live at the same time. Maybe that's the emergency situation that was pointed out in Executive Order 14067 to enable the Fed to create a full-on CBDC of the future. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but all these things are lining up perfectly right now. And I still think that the Fed is definitely going to utilize XRP and Ripple in the future. But with that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.